and really nothing happened. Like, okay, so these two guys went to the blacksmith, and the third one was alone in a cabin,
Aunt
and the
Agnes.
cabin, yeah, and it used to belong to the like a voodoo priestess or something like that, and he was there completely alone, experiencing some stuff. Like he could hear, sorry, what he could hear steps, and he didn't even react. He was sitting in a chair. There is he can hear a footstep, and I mean the audience can hear a footsteps too. And he didn't even turn his head. He was just pointing the camera right to his face again, like a Blair Witch project. Like there was nothing, just his face and his nostrils. And literally, there is a ghost walking around him. So no reaction at all. Like, okay, so if I was on his, in his shoes, I would stand up and start like, oh my goodness, where is it coming from? I would do something, point my camera towards the noise. But no, nothing. He was just sitting there and rambling. Like, I don't even think, was he talking about the ghost or was he just randomly, talking about nothing?
I don't know. I have no idea.
I
Now,
mean, such a huge impression they made on us.
what I did find funny was that some the people that they interviewed on Ghost Adventures, they're still there about 7 years later. So I thought that was funny. It's like, hey, wait a second, that's that
What
guy.
was what was the name of the ranger?
Dusty or
Okay,
Dustin, one of them.
that I think it was Dusty. Yeah, it was
Yeah,
very
I was
weird
like, what the
to me.
heck? He's still there. Man, must have a good paying job. Yeah, I
Yeah,
thought
he definitely loves his job. Otherwise, he wouldn't stay there.
so. I thought that was kind of funny. But oddly enough, they weren't able to investigate the main house.
Yeah, that's correct.
So I don't know why that was, but they went around it, or at least one did, and well, he didn't really do anything. That's when he took out that thermal camera on the iPhone, which I
It was very blurry, and
and you
he
actually
caught some.
he called an air conditioner.
Yeah, exactly. And for the 5 minutes, he was like, "Oh my God, I'm getting some anomaly. There is one cold." And then suddenly he looks to the building without his phone, and like, "Oh, okay, that's AC."
Yeah, I that's so bad. This show, it shouldn't even had 3 episodes. What a piece of junk. All right, let's jump to Ghost Adventures for a minute. So yeah, Ghost Adventures, they went to the same exact spot, but 7 years earlier. And mind you, this is in season 2 of Ghost Adventures. So when it comes to the TV stuff, they're still new to it. As a matter of fact, their first major investigation happened in 2008, 2007, 2008. That's when the documentary film came out, and that's what actually got them their show. So fast forward to 2009, and that's when they were investigating the Magnolia Plantation, and the crew, Nick, Aaron, and Zach, weren't together for all that long, maybe a couple of years. So by this point in time, if you do the math, the Ghost brothers actually should have had more experience than Ghost Adventures. Let that sink in. Okay, so Angie, Ghost
Yes.
Adventures investigation. Go ahead.
Well, it was better than I thought it's going to be, to be honest. Yeah, Zach wasn't so obnoxious. He was kind of tolerable, so Yeah, and you could definitely see the change in approach and everything. They were, well, I cannot say that they were too respectful to the place because again, Zach tried a little, you know, yelling at the ghosts and trying to provoke them, and he was shouting about doing a voodoo magic on them. But yeah, I was very surprised, to be honest. I didn't expect that it's going to be so professional.
Yeah, well, okay. I think the Ghost Adventures crew was more respectful than the Ghost Brothers crew, and the reason being is I know how Zach is. He gets excited and he gets loud and he just gets stupid. Saying that, they're also white and they probably have little real connection to that place versus an investigation team who's black, who didn't even investigate the voodoo aspects of it or try to learn about it. Or if they did, they certainly didn't show it. It's going to cure syphilis. Oh, God, he needs to get kicked. Whereas the Ghost Adventures crew, they went to a freaking ceremony and you guys may not believe it, but what they captured on camera at the ceremony in the smoke, to me, even though it might not be paranormal, but to me, it looked like the face of a woman, like they said. Like, you can see an eye, you can see a nose, you can see a hairline. I saw that. I was just like,
I
okay.
didn't.
Yeah, Angie didn't.
Well, no, to be honest, I did see an eye. However, the rest of it was very disfigured and I couldn't see like a nice woman's face, but I could see clearly I could see an eye. So that I'll give you an
Okay.
eye.
All right. I'll take it. Um, they now both groups actually went into the history and they shared some of the same historical information, which, how is that going to change? But it feels like the Ghost Adventures crew went more in depth with it, and I find that surprising because not only did they go more in depth with the history, which of course takes up 20 minutes of time, they investigated more places and they captured more evidence. But saying that, capturing evidence, it's a hit or miss. Either you will or you won't. So I'm not going to hold that against the Ghost Brothers, but it felt like Ghost Adventures did more in around the same time span than the Ghost Brothers. And again, this could just be editing, which it most likely is, but then there are just some things that you can't edit. Like, why is it that the Ghost Adventure stuff felt like it went by way quicker than the Ghost Brothers? I certainly wasn't bored with Ghost Adventures, and I saw the Magnolia Plantation several times over. This was Angie's first time seeing it. And I think you agreed with me. It didn't feel like it was a long, boring trudge.
Well, it was a very good episode. I admit that.
Um,
And
and
definitely, and they were able to cover like a comical relief to the episodes, and it didn't feel
it didn't feel forced.
exactly. And it was nice, and they did the interviews with anthropologists and some historian, and they had fun with them too. They had, as you said, the voodoo ritual. They called the priestess there to do it for
Yeah,
them.
Bloody Mary.
Yeah, and
Mind you, this was New Orleans voodoo, but, whatever.
yeah, but Melvin told me that she is legit.
Yeah, she's legit. I mean, I think she has a little scam artist tendencies, but otherwise, I do think she is 100% legit.
So have you heard about her before?
Yeah, I actually read about her after that episode, and
Oh,
studied up
okay.
on her and stuff. She is legit, but I don't know if she was actually taught by a hooligan or a mambo. Voodoo priest or priestess. There you go.
You know me so well in my silence.
So, but yeah, that was really cool. I really enjoyed that. And speaking of the more lighthearted moments, the reason why crews tend to have lighthearted moments and those quote unquote comedic moments, it's just to get rid of some of the tension because when they oh, excuse me again. I don't know what's wrong with me, but when they investigate, it's totally dark. You're on pins and needles, and there could be all these energies circling around you and such, and you have to cut that tension with something. And that's why a lot of groups they have lighthearted moments. It could be so random, but this happens for a very good reason. Um, with Ghost Brothers, I think they were trying too hard to be funny at certain times, and their humor doesn't connect with me to begin with. You know, I don't like the fact that they were in Aunt Agnes, and Aunt Agnes is she was a slave who, I guess you could look at her as the grandmother or the mom figure who took care of everyone, made sure things were happening and going right, and she did voodoo. And they were in there, they weren't getting any responses or anything, and then this idiot, he he decided to say, oh, you know what, auntie's like going to sleep early and stuff, she took her bra off, she's in a moo. I was like, really?
Oh yeah, that
I
was very disrespectful.
I'm just thinking to myself, it's like, oh god. And but the problem is they didn't see anything wrong with it. I mean,
Yeah,
maybe
and
there's nothing wrong with it. Maybe I am being too hard on them. I don't know. I don't think I am, but maybe I am. You know,
but
you
yeah, definitely there are certain things you don't want to make fun about,
yeah,
you know.
and
And definitely this is one of it. Like, why would they make fun of this very important part of history in that area, you know, and in such a weird way? And
now,
they should know that women in that time didn't wear bras.
oh, Angie.
I mean, sorry, but this is offensive.
um, Now they did get some activity with the REM pod, which works off of electromagnetic energy, where a ghost can go up to it and cause it to go off. So they did get that type of activity, but that was about it. Where 7 years earlier, which is very interesting, and this was probably one of the best parts of the Ghost Adventures one. Zach and Aaron went to that same cabin, and while they were actually en route, it was another cabin that's light kept going on and off. And they had no explanation for it. It was like, what the heck is happening here? So, oh gosh, why do I hear myself?
Sorry, I need to turn on the light,
Oh,
so probably that's why.
oh, okay. I hate my voice. Please hurry and turn the light on. I don't want to hear me. Oh, it stopped. I can't hear me anymore. Okay, good. Um, what was I saying? What was I saying?
You were saying about the lights
Oh,
turning on.
yes. At the other cabin, the light was turning on and off by itself and stuff. They had no explanation. Like, what the heck? How is this happening? Is there something in there? Is it a light sensor? And Dusty or Dustin, I think they call them both names, but I think his name is Dustin. He came over like, well, that shouldn't be happening. You know, it's nothing in there that should cause that, but okay. He called it a Lulu. Um, so they go
And
into, huh?
no, I just wanted to say, and the funny thing was that something similar happened to Ghost Brothers, but Well, and for me personally, it felt like they tried to only mimic the episodes of, Ghost Adventures, because yeah, something was happening. I believe it was probably the same cabin next to the, what was her name, on.
Aunt Agnes.
Yeah, so it happened probably in the same cabin. They could hear some weird noise and they were checking it. It was locked down, like padlocked. Nothing was inside, and still they could hear some, I don't know, bangings from the inside. I can't recall it. And yeah, they didn't even investigate it more thoroughly or nothing. And yeah, again, for me, it felt like that they probably saw it in Ghost Adventures and wanted to have the same experience, and they just faked it in to their show.
That it's possible. I hope that's not the case because, like I told you earlier, really the only thing we have when it comes to these shows is we have to hope that they all have integrity and they're not faking things. I can understand being partially scripted, sound stuff happens and mess like that, but I think instead of re-saying or redoing whatever action, just say, "Oh, sound messed up, keep going." It's
But doing so little investigation and trying to see what's happening, and they just brush over it like, okay, we experienced this and that's it. They do not focus on it for extended time periods.
yeah. So,
It's very suspicious
but
in my book.
again, I always have to go back to this creative editing. So you just never know how they edit it. Like that's one of the issues with all these shows, not just these two that we're talking about at the moment. It's just all of them. It's creative editing. Like I've seen cases where editing can make you look like the coolest guy in the world, and then some cases where if you are the coolest guy in the world, you would look like the biggest prick, like almost seamlessly.
Well, that's possible. I'm not saying it is not, but yeah, I'm just saying how it looks to me.
Yeah. Uh,
So,
okay, so yeah, Aaron and Zach went into Aunt Agnes' cabin, and they were locked in there, and they got some stuff. It was very interesting. First thing, and this is so funny because when it happened, I actually had to tell Angie, like, Angie totally called this. Um, and even earlier in the main house when it happened, I think I said, gosh, you were 100% right. But Zach felt a vibration or footsteps or something that was right by him, and he jumped and looked and was like, ah. And in the main house, earlier in the investigation, they heard steps or knocking, tapping, and they all simultaneously stopped and looked in that direction and stuff. And it goes back to something Angie said, like the guy, Dalen, in Aunt Agnes' cabin sitting down, and he heard footsteps, but he didn't do anything. And I was like,
and those footsteps were all around him. I mean, I still don't understand. He was just sitting there.
so,
It's
but
so bizarre.
the other crazy thing is, and this picked up on camera. I don't know how, but Zach said it was chanting, and I heard something. I don't know if it was chanting, but I heard voices and what sounded like drumming, which it really sounded like a voodoo ritual because when it comes to voodoo rituals, they do the drumming and stuff to create a certain beat, certain mood, get the right vibrations. And I mean, he started to panic a little bit, and I mean, you can hear it. Like you can legit hear it.
Yeah, that's true. It was there.
And it was just like, whoa. Meanwhile,
And
well,
and both of them could hear it, Aaron and Zach.
yeah, and meanwhile, 7 years later, same cabin and everything, pretty much nothing. And I don't know why that is. Again, it's hit or miss. Could it have been the voodoo ritual they did that stirred stuff up? I have no idea.
But then you would say that, okay, so white guys did a voodoo ritual to somehow, connect with the spirits that live there. But then you have there like three black guys who are basically, descendants of those people who were slaves there. So you would think that perhaps it will stir the situation on its own.
Well, the thing with voodoo is it doesn't know race, which is a good thing.
Well, I'm not
It's
talking I'm not talking about voodoo, but I'm talking about the people that they were in a slave quarters.
well, I got that. I just wanted to explain that with voodoo, like when it comes to it, they're all our ancestor spirits, meaning that every person alive, they're you can do voodoo or hoodoo. Not saying you should, but you can, and those are our ancestors. They consider themselves our ancestors, so it knows no bounds or anything. So even if anyone can do it, that's all I'm just getting at. Everyone's related in voodoo. It's no specific rules. You got to look like him or her, and blah blah blah.
Yeah,
But
but then again, I remember. Okay, so do you remember that part in Ghost Brothers? One of the guys went into the overseer's house and he immediately started. Okay, he was there with another person. Who was that? Do you remember who was that?
uh, yeah, it was another paranormal investigator. I can't remember his name though.
Was he paranormal investigator? I totally missed that. I thought he was someone working in a plantation as a guide or something.
No, he was an investigator.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he captured evidence there himself.
Yeah, but he immediately he was asking the question to trigger some responses from the spirits, and he immediately, since he was inside of the overseer's house, he was like, okay, do you like us working here as equals? And then he got reaction.
Yeah.
So in one part, they totally played these racial cards, and where they should play, like when they were in actual slave quarters, they did nothing. That's a little bit weird.
It is a bit odd, So I don't know. Like I said, I have question marks around some of the oh gosh, blah. I can't say that word. What is it? Authenticity?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
Well, yeah, okay, we'll go with that of the show. And I question their investigative abilities. I think they're terrible paranormal investigators. I think they're terrible entertainers. I think they're stereotypical. It's a lot of negative things I think about them, and I think that they could have done better. And I love this because in an interview, which you're like, I'm not reading this, it's probably as boring as the show, they consider themselves the Jackie Robinsons of paranormal investigators, which is an insult to Jackie Robinson, first of all.
And
Secondly,
you know that I have no idea who that is.
Jackie Robinson was the first black American to play in the Major League Baseball.
Oh, okay.
So he crossed that line, and he was the first ever. So it was a big moment in sports history. And for them to say that, and be as crummy as they are, it's insulting to Jackie Robinson and his legacy. And it's like, no, guys, you guys suck. You're crummy. I wouldn't let my kids watch you. I would. Oh no! If I'm gonna let them watch, I'm just gonna tell them this is how you don't do it. This is how you don't be a buffoon. This is how you don't be a clown. Everything they're doing, you do the opposite of. I mean, congrats to them being successful in their business lives, but when it comes to paranormal investigative work, man, they need to go somewhere. But saying that, I'm going to give them one more chance with this new show.
The only thing I really liked about that episode was that they actually tried to speak French.
Oh yes.
I mean, that was the only thing I was like, oh, okay, that's relatively nice because, yeah, those people probably didn't know much of an English back in the day, so French was good.
Well, the problem is though, you saw the part where then all of a sudden they decided to buffoon it up,
Yeah, I know.
and it's like, well, this defeats the purpose. Why would you do this? And then they're gonna say, no, dog, don't say my name. Like, you can't say your real name. It's like, what?
I mean, they pretty much knew the name of Aunt Agnes, so why? I don't understand why they thought that the proper introduction is not correct and it can
Let me
harm
tell you why.
them.
Because they're stupid. That's why. That's simple. They are stupid. And I'm getting riled up. Good lord. Like I said, I'll give them one more shot with this new show, which I will check out later today. Uh, by this time, Angie will be knocked out sleeping. I will not subject you to that torture.
Oh,
Well,
believe me, I will do that. I'm going to watch it too.
okay. Now, we have, because, I don't like this going over a certain amount of time because I have to cut up everything, but we have enough time to go to this stuff. So, Angie is a fan of Ghost Hunters.
Yes,
I,
I'm a big fan of Ghost Hunters.
I like most things. I enjoyed the early seasons of Ghost Hunters, which is weird because I could say that about everything. I love the early seasons of everything, and then I don't know, everything tends to fall flat. Like Supernatural, I love season 1 through 5 of Supernatural. Awesome, 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 so good. And then season 6 and 7 happened, and Sarah Gamble, thank God she got the boot, and they had to fix all her mistakes. And then it got really good, and it's time for it to end. But the season 1 through 5, excellent. Ghost Adventures, I really enjoyed the early seasons. I didn't like the provoking, um, but they learned their lesson from that. They learned their lesson real quick. Um, but I would say the best seasons of Ghost Adventure is probably season 3 through 7. Um, with season 1 and 2, like I said, it's a lot of provoking. You could tell they were still learning and trying to figure things out. And now the into the more current seasons, I don't like them as much because number one, I miss Nick, and they changed the format a little bit, which they shouldn't have done. It should just be guys in a 24-hour lockdown or overnight lockdown, so 12 to 15 hours, and they're stuck in this place and going around trying to get answers or whatever. The original formula is better than the current formula. They shouldn't have a nerve center. They shouldn't be able to go out and get some air and all that stuff. But Zach needs to stop being so dark and demon. With Ghost Hunters, my issue with them was, well, again, in the early seasons, I really enjoyed it. I don't know why they had their side gig as plumbers on there for a minute. Bet you they don't work as plumbers anymore, though.
Well, it wasn't a side gig
I
back
mean,
in
their
the
main
day.
job, excuse me.
Yeah.
Well, I said a side gig because the show was about them paranormal investigating, but they added their main job, but it was like a side portion of the show in the
So
earlier
it's all.
seasons.
So it's all right for Ghost. Well, yes, Ghost Brothers to show that one of them is barber, and they had this guy, sitting in a chair, and he was doing him a facial mask or whatever. But it's not okay for Ghost Hunters to
Well,
show that they are plumbers.
Ghost Hunters is clearly the superior show, and it wasn't needed. With Ghost Brothers, I expect garbage, so therefore I get garbage. Meaning that it doesn't matter. You're right. There's a difference. I hold Ghost Hunters at a higher quality. Yes, it matters. Darn it. But even saying that, the stuff with the plumbing and mess, it was really small, and I think it was just there for filler more than anything, and to try and make the guys look like, see, they're real like you and I, just on TV, and they do this weird investigating.
Yeah, exactly. And I believe in the earlier seasons, they even use the plumbing trucks to move to the
Yes, they
location.
used the
So
plumbing.
yeah,
That was great advertising, though.
yeah, it was.
Um, but with Ghost Hunters, their biggest issue was so many investigators and so many of them changing, and it lost that personal touch. And I will stick by this. I will fight anyone who says differently, but I think Grant was the one who took it the most seriously, who truly cared, who really wanted to find evidence. And when he left, that was it. And they just like, let me tell you how many people was on Ghost Hunters. So
Well,
the
I know there was a lot of them. However, the core of the crew was still the same.
I mean, well, I think it really should have stayed Jason, Grant, maybe
Steve and Tango, they
Dave,
are the best.
yeah, Steve and Dave, and maybe that's it. But they just had so many, and that turned me off. It's like it was
And
just
oh
too.
my god, I used to have such a huge crush on Steve. I mean, wow, he was a big crush of mine.
Okay, well, Steve, if you're listening, you know, Angie says hi.
Okay.
He said okay. um, but yeah, now and then of course you have the other shows which I mentioned earlier, like Paranormal State, Paranormal Witness. I think that was what was Paranormal Witness? That was a
Well,
TV
it's
show,
not.
TV show, wasn't it?
Yeah, yeah. It's not about paranormal investigation. They are just mentioning some experience of people, and they are doing reenactments of it.
Yeah, okay. That was actually a good show though. I did enjoy that, but
I didn't.
of course you didn't. Why would
Yes,
you?
the thing you should know about me, I'm a huge critic of everything. So to please me is really really difficult.
So now I sometimes take issue with how ghost hunters approach things. I think they went in with the mind frame of we're gonna debunk it, with the exception of Grant, we're gonna debunk it and prove it's not real. And I think they were too close minded. Whereas Angie, she thinks the opposite of what I do with Ghost Adventure. She thinks they're too open, Zach in particular, and makes
I no, I don't. I'm not
well,
saying they are too open. What I'm saying is that they are open to their own imagination. They are forgetting that they are investigators and they should be neutral and approach things professionally and not to make assumptions like, did we open this portal
well, that's
to hell, you
you see,
know?
that's not making an assumption. That's just asking a question. And
No, that's
that's
assuming.
not assuming. That's asking a question, and you have to see it in context. Like, what are
Yes,
they
however, if
investigating,
they
and
are
why?
asking, but my problem is that they willingly ask open questions and they phrase it in a way that the audience will automatically assume that that's what's happening. So if Zach asks, like, I don't know, something about the demon, because he only talks about demons, I guess. So yeah, the audience who have probably zero experience with paranormal, sorry, they will logically assume that, oh my goodness, this is really happening. This is what Zach thinks. He has a long time experience, So that's my problem.
And
My problem is that they are making assumptions and they are forcing those assumptions to audience.